Now, Ability Alliance, we do 3 waivers there. We do the ID waiver, we do the living at home waiver, and we do the new waiver, which is the CWP waiver. Now, right now, unless we're grandfathered in or already have the waiver, the only waiver that's available to get in Tuscaloosa County, as of today, you know, the Department of Mental Health may change things tomorrow, but as of today, it's the CWP waiver, okay? But what I want to talk a little bit to everybody about today is eligibility, and how to become eligibility, and how to be eligible, and how to get on the waiver. It's very important, and there's some handouts back there, and if I didn't make enough copies for everybody that looks like this, I can email you a copy, or I can get copies to you later. So it's very important to go ahead and apply for the waiver at this time. Because I tell you what, that right now, if your child or your person got on the waiver, was given onto the waiting list, you're still 2.5 years out from getting services. There's that many people waiting on the waiver. The waivers serve people from 3 on. So the first step with the waiver is to call the 1-800 number that's here, the call center number. You call the call center number and you say, I want to do an intake. And they're gonna take some demographic information about you, who are you serving, who is it, things like that. And then they're gonna refer you to our intake coordinator, Amanda Grace. And then she's gonna contact you, and she's gonna talk to you about, you need to bring in a psychological or IQ test. And all this is written down, you don't have to take notes. And Amanda, when she contacts you, she's gonna send you a text message with all these things listed out for you to bring in. So to be eligible for the CWP waivers this time, which is the waiver that we serve. Now there's the L&D waiver, there's a sale waiver, there's a ton of different waivers. I'm just speaking on the CWP waiver at this time. There, you would have to have, the person would have to have an IQ of 69 or less. We think that'll be changed to 72. Right now today it's 69, but we think that'll be changed to 72. And we get a lot of people that fall within that pot between 69 and 72. There has to have, you had to have intellectual disability before age 18. And if the person comes to us after age 18, we have to have a psychological before and after. Now we'll work with the school systems to try to help you get all the information that you need, because if you're like me as a parent, you got stuff and you just tossed it over in a box and you didn't keep up with it. Some of y'all are more organized than I am. You don't have to dig through that box, but we'll help you find those things if you can't find them. But it's important to get on the waiver, because every year about April and May, I get bombarded with phone calls. Hey, my child's 18, they're graduating from high school. Hey, my child's 22, they're graduating from high school. What can we do? Can't do anything for you. Because so what I advise families to do, even if your child is 3, 5, 7, we have a couple of 7-year-olds. We have a lot of people that are under 15. We have a lot of folks that are between 15 and 22, and we have a lot of older folks, of course, also. But go ahead and apply and get on the waiting list. And then also, if your slot comes up, go ahead and accept the waiver. If you may just be getting support coordination at that time, that may be all you need. Your person may not need anything else but that. But go ahead and accept, because if not, you fall back down to the bottom, and we work that whole list before we get back to you. So it's best to go ahead. And the waiver's a good thing. It's not like you can only do this. We have these services called provider services, and that means you use an agency like Easter Seals or UCP or Tuscaloosa, Community Mental Health Connections. There's a plethora of agencies, provider services, that we can provide services for you. We're the people who put the money in the pot and watch the budgets, because each one of these categories has a budget. If your child is between 3 and 12, that budget's $12,000 a year. If your child's between 12 and 15, it's 13. Between 15 and 22, it's $15,000 a year. And then after 22, it's $30,000 a year, unless they live on their own at 45. I think it will increase, but the way the economy is and the way the world is right now, it's all funded through Medicaid, so I don't know if it would It will increase or will not increase, but anyway, they think if by using the small amount when you're younger, you're already getting other services from the school system, or you're getting other services, or you're providing those natural supports to your family. But, you know, 12,000 goes a long way if you're needing medical supplies or if you're needing personal assistance. And so I talked a little bit about provider services. There's also self-directed services, which that would mean that somebody in the family, a church member or a relative, or you could hire somebody and you could actually, the parent or a parent friend or whoever that you designated could be like what we call the EOR, which is employer of record, and you could actually hire people that you know to work with your loved one. And that way it's easy, sometimes it's easier for families because you can set the schedule, you can set the pay rate, you're more comfortable because you know the person. But also with the waiver, you can pick and choose. You can do a little bit of self-directed services. We have one person, we have a lot of people that may have a job and they may go to work and they may get supports from UCP or Peace or Easter Seal, but then they also may self-direct services on the weekends or something by people they hire out. So I tell people it's like a buffet. You can get a little bit of this and a little bit of that. You're not locked in, you're not locked into a contract. We've had families that have signed up for the waiver and then they realize this doesn't work for me. You just tell us. We need a reason. I can't just say they didn't want to do it. You can say I didn't like my support coordinator, or I didn't, it's just not right for me, or these services. We'll need a reason, but you don't have to continue the services with us. Is there questions for me as we go along? About
when I raised my
yes, ma'am.
My daughter, we started coming here when she was 8 years old. And so she's 12 years old now, and they told us that we would be with the program until she's 18.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I got invited to come to this tonight, because after she's not 18 years old, then we need to get with the waiver for 18 on up.
Right.
So that's why we're here. My daughter's Down syndrome.
Yeah, well, and that's great. And, we all work together, and I've got to tell people, if there's enough work to go around, and the providers will tell you the same thing, they don't fight over people, because there's enough people and there's enough work to go around. We're not gonna fight you over a waiver if you wanna use area of aging that has the E&D waiver. That's a good waiver too. But but it would be good if you looked at our stuff and called. You could call us and get on our waiting list. You could call area of aging and get on their waiting list. You can get on the waiting list and you can determine then at that time, if that's the waiver you want to do. Because we all ask for the same eligibility information.
Yeah.
So it would be, to her advantage to try to get on one of the waivers, because we can pay out $5,000 a year for medical supplies. That might be a wheelchair, that might be a hearing aid, that might be, depends, or whatever.
That's why I came. Depends.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm going through with her pediatrician, and I'm going through with her GI doctor. And they was like, you need somebody to refer. Because we spend a lot of money on the opinion.
Mm-hmm. I know a lot of families do.
It's her teacher, because she goes to a new school now, she's in middle school, and her teacher was the one that told me I need to come here and talk to you all about, I don't want to take over, I'm a talker, but I don't want to take over, but that's the main reason why I came to, like, help me get in with the opinion.
Call this 1-800 number, and let's see if we can go ahead and get you started. Call it tomorrow. Tell me you want to do an intake.
Okay.
And then they'll take some demographic information, and Amanda will contact you. And Amanda can come out to your home, or you can come to the office. It's whatever. Sometimes it's not convenient for people to come in the office. Sometimes they have extra children, or maybe they don't drive, or maybe they don't have a car. So we'll figure out how to do the intake.
Okay.
But it's just important to get on the information. And I think the other waivers probably pay out a little bit too with specialized medical needs. But the CWP has caps every year. Like it caps at $5,000 a year for medical supplies. It caps at so many hours for personal assistance. It caps at these things. And we can try to go above the cap, but we have to send a request to Montgomery. Montgomery has to send it to Medicaid, and then it kind of slows down the process. But try to get all you can get now, because we don't know what's going to be down the road with stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my daughter's 4, and we're actually in the process with the area agency on aging for her. We have to appeal now. There's separate ways to apply for a waiver.
We're separate agencies, and we do the Medicaid waivers. It's different waivers. I would apply for everybody and see what I can get. Sometimes we have families, we have families that are using the, E&D waiver, and then they come up on a slot for our waiver, and they might switch over to our waiver. You just have to, it's like shopping at Walmart or Target. You just gotta decide who has what you need.
Okay.
You know, cause some people that, the E&D waiver, we have one family that's on the sale waiver that came up on our list, but they were already on the sale waiver, so it worked out better for them to stay there. So you just have to figure out what works best for your family. And what works best today might not be what works best 2 years from now. And you can stay on the waiting list, we just have to work the list back around to you. And with your daughter being that young, we can try to figure out something. Do you have a question?
Yes, I guess I got a little bit confused, early on, you were saying, giving an example about someone calling in their child that just turned 18, and you said, well, there's nothing we can do, so at what age do you guys stop taking applications? I guess?
We take applications, but the person was not on the waiting list, the person had not went through intake, they were not on the waiting list, and then then they realized they needed services.
Okay.
But, so we couldn't give them services because we worked the waiting list, we work it chronologically
Okay.
from when people go onto the list, unless there's an emergency situation. Somebody's homeless, both parents are dead, you know, whatever the emergency situation, now we will move people around if there's an emergency situation. And that does happen. Someone's went to North Harbor, there's no family around, you know, there's those things that do happen. Did you have a question?
Is there a place that kind of lists what all the different waivers are, or which agencies?
You can look on the Medicaid website.
Okay.
It's confusing, but it does say, it is the Medicaid website, and it says the CWP does this, and the cell waiver does this, and y'all may have some more information to help folks with that, but.
Yeah, and that's something that I can go through and kind of maybe see if I'll make it easier to read and easier to break down. And then I can send it out. I'll make sure it's on our website, but I can send it out, to the email list.
But because on the Medicaid website, it's pages and pages and pages, and it's more information than you need.
Right.
You just, to me, as a parent, I just need the bullets.
Yeah. This, call this.
Yep, this, call this is gonna pay for this is gonna do this, I don't need all the jargon, but that's just me.
So if you already in the program, when she turned 18, do I need to re-sign up, or?
No, you need to go ahead and either and follow up with one of the other agencies, just to get you lined up in the process of going on to a waiting list.
So they call a social worker, or
Call this 1-800 number, just call this 1-800 number.
Are you talking about, when you say downstairs, you're talking about children's rehab services?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's what
so that's completely different than
Thank you.
what this is. So,
Oh.
yes. So, yes, they are helping you right now, but it's completely separate, so you do need to call the 1-800.
We might could do both at the same, we probably could do both at the same time. I think you could get services from children's downstairs as well as getting services from the waiver.
Okay, so it is, okay, thank you, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
For this waiver, can you, tell me what it stands for? You said this.
Community Waiver Program.
Okay.
Somebody was real smart when they came up with that. I don't know who came up with it. Community Waiver Program.
Yeah.
And then you were going a little fast when you were talking about the, financial limits each year. You said from ages 3 to 12 is 12,000, 12 to 15 is 15,000. What are the other two categories?
So it's 12,000, 14,000, and then from age 15 to 22 is 15,000, and then at 22 is 30,000, unless they live on their own independently. And we do have some folks that do live independently, like in their own apartment, but there's services provided in there, and they're 45,000. And another good thing the waiver has also to offer is what we call remote supports. So even though I'm old, these young kids, so remote supports, there'll be things set up in the home. There might be a buzzer on the bed that'll go off if somebody gets up. It might be like one guy works at Walmart, but he's got remote services, so he has a computer. And every morning, the iPad, and this guy comes on the iPad and says, hey, Tammy, did you pack your lunch? Did you do this? You know, and he goes down the whole, did you get your vest? Did you get your name tag? And he goes through this whole thing, and this kid knows that that's the time that somebody's gonna come on the iPad before he goes to work. And it's programmed in, his shifts are programmed in, because you know, he works different times and different shifts. So, but that's a good thing, remote supports, and that way the families don't have to be locked in. If the person lives alone, they've got remote supports in the middle of the night. It's sort of like a soft line too, if somebody wakes up in the middle of the night. You just have to figure out what you want remote supports. There's a whole plethora of things you can get, but you could get a soft line so they could call somebody in the middle of the night. Hey, I'm really afraid. I don't feel like I need to call 911, but I can't go back to sleep. And they'll talk to you. And then on that person on that line has a whole tree list of numbers. They might call the parents, they might call the uncle, they might call the priest, they might call the support coordinator on who to call if they can't reach that person, or if that person's in distress or something like that. And there's all kinds of services with remote supports. And that's worked out a lot good for some of our folks who really don't need somebody there with them, but the families, you know, it's the families that aren't comfortable a lot of times. It's not the person. It's sort of like when your child starts driving, you're all afraid for them to drive, but they're ready to drive, you know? But as parents, we're always gonna be afraid and cautious that something's gonna, well, this could happen, you know, nothing good happens after midnight. You know, we're all afraid of what could happen. Right. And this waiver also tries to work with people to get them jobs. And we try to, because, you know, a job is great because of the money and everything. And we all want jobs because we want the money and we want but you also think of the social interaction you get and how good you feel about your job. Now, we have all had crappy jobs. I'm not saying everybody's got a great job. We've all had crappy jobs. But, you know, getting out and meeting people and just going to work and saying, let me tell you what my husband did last night. That idiot did such and such. You know, and it gives you somebody to vent to. And that's what for our folks too. It gives them a social outlet as well as money. And, you know, you make connections. How many people have met their spouse there, or churches are good. You meet friends at churches, you know, you're going out to social events. So it's all about new life experiences. If you don't know, if you hadn't tried, you know, how many times have we tried food and we didn't think, I'm not gonna like that, and you did? Or how many times have you met somebody that I'm not gonna like her, but you do? You know, or I'm not gonna like to jump out of a plane, but you did. You know, it's all about giving people life experiences. And sometimes we think people with disabilities shouldn't have life experiences. We just wanna keep them in a box, keep them safe, check out the list. But that's not what they want. That's not what people, they want to have life experiences, and we've got to do that. We've got to give them that dignity or risk, and it's hard. As a parent, I can tell you, it's really hard. I know it is, but you just, you know, our parents had to do that for us. They had to give us a chance. You know, no matter what somebody's disability is, everybody's got ability. We all want to say a disability, but you know, everybody's got an ability, and we just have to find what that ability is. There's a lot of things I can't do, but somebody else can do it. There's some things I can do that other people can. It takes the whole village. It takes all of it. You know? Yes, ma'am.
I have another question. I have a child with a disability and I work in special education in the school system. And we've gotten several calls this year about some of our parents, the kids in high school, and they're saying that they're not eligible, or they're being told they're not eligible for a waiver because their special education eligibility is in autism and not an intellectual disability. And I know some of our kids don't have an IQ. We usually try to make sure they have that IQ before 16 and after 18, but their eligibility may not be ID or multiple autism ID. It may be autism. So my question is, are those kids not eligible if their eligibility is autism, and does the school need to look at doing multiple disabilities, autism and ID for those kids who have a lower IQ?
Yes, and yes. But it's a fine line, because the diagnosis from the doctor, the diagnosis from the person that did the IQ test, the primary diagnosis needs to be intellectual disability. And then autism can be secondary. Now, we know sometimes with different people, one disability causes another disability. So the autism could have caused the intellectual disability. There is a group of autism folks, so if that person only has the autism diagnosis, they fall over into that category with the autism people. There's a group at the university, and then Department of Mental Health also has an autism department that they can get services from. But for this waiver, they would have to test out, have an intellectual disability at 69 or below before age 18. And a lot of times it's just getting the person doing the testing or getting the doctor at their doctor's office to say that that's the primary diagnosis. And a lot of times as parents, we feel stigmatized by the term intellectual disability. And so we don't want to say that. We want to say, my child doesn't have an intellectual disability, they got autism. Well, and that's true, they may have autism, but they may have intellectual disability too. And so to use this waiver, intellectual disability would have to be the primary diagnosis.
Okay, so for our, eligibility categories, we don't have primary and secondary, so we list it in Power School, but it's really equal. But what you're saying is ID needs to be listed before autism, because really we don't have primary or secondary.
It really needs to be listed by somebody with a PhD or an MD behind their name.
So y'all aren't taking it from the schools, like we do the IQ testing and all that, for this waiver, they have to go to a psychologist?
No, we use the schools, we cannot use I'm blanking on which one we can't use. We cannot use the one that's RAIS, and I'm trying to.
I know they said they can't use that alone.
We can't use that alone because everybody in the whole world is getting a score of 40. I read so many of them in 2020 when I was doing intake, and everybody got a score of 40. So Medicaid said, we can't take that test anymore unless there's another test like a WISC or something to accompany that test, because it just looked like.
But really those tests, I'm a school psychologist, it's the same thing. When they're at a certain level, that's the lower limit of the scale. So even on the WISC, if you follow the lower limit, meaning you have a scale score of 1 on every sub-test, you'll get a 40. Same thing with the C-Tony.
Yeah, and I'm not disagreeing with you, I'm just saying Medicaid standards say what they publish, they won't take it because everybody was just getting the same score. But I'm just saying Medicaid,
So they have a WISC of a 40 and a RIAS of a 40, it's okay. We're just trying to make sure we're taking care of the kids.
yeah, if you got a WISC of a 40 and a RIAS of a 40, that's fine. But it can't just be the RIAS. And you can look on the Medicaid website, and it gives the tests that they will accept. And I also have, if you'll give me your email address, I'll send you our scope of services and our operational guidelines that list out the tests that we can use.
So back to the question, cause we're getting a lot of calls for our kids who are lower functioning, and they have IQ tests, they have achievement tests, they've got tests throughout their school career, but their eligibility is autism. Do those kids need to have ID on it? Cause for a lot of them, we already have all the testing, it's just a matter of changing paperwork.
For us, for our waiver, for the CWP waiver, it would have to have intellectual disability as a primary diagnosis.
Okay.
But, you know, you could always go to the autism people and see what they would help with. And a lot of times we combine, like we have one child now, I think she's 13, and she is just started on her waiver, but she's getting services from us, and she's getting services from DMH Autism Services also, which is not paid through the waiver. It's paid separately, because we're trying not to get on their caps, to go over their caps.
And that's why I feel like Down syndrome children are left out. Cause to me, I feel like they're more focused on the autism.
But Down syndrome kids kind of get a trump card. They're in. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
They're in because they got Down syndrome as a diagnosis.
Okay,
So,
okay.
you know, they're sitting better than everybody else. But
That's true, that's true. My
So-
daughter's the only Down syndrome child in her class.
right.
And other classes, so, okay.
So no.
Yeah.
Sir, you had a question?
So one kid with an intellectual disability and another kid who's autistic is the primary. What is the organization that you keep talking about for autism?
Department of Mental Health has a division,
Okay.
and you can just Google it. It's Department of Mental Health Autism Division, And then University of Alabama has an autism clinic also.
Well, are they providing waivers? I know they have testing, but what about the services, like your listing, what is?
I don't know. I don't think they're providing waivers, but I can't speak to that, cause I've never been on that side of there, so I'm not sure. I've always been on the ID side of life.
The Department of Mental Health is for children and adults.
Yeah.
Just like UA.
Yeah.
Children and adults.
If, you start the intake process and they're like, you don't have the right, intellectual testing, that kind of thing, is there like a time limit you have?
There's not a time limit. We've got people sitting there for 5 years that hadn't turned all their paper, they have all the paperwork hadn't got turned in. We'll refer you, we have different people in town that test. Some people test on a sliding scale. Some people give a standard $300 to test. Just depends. You can bring in your own test person if you can't get a test from the school or something.
Use the site clinic on campus?
You could use the site clinic on campus. As long as they have a license number to write under their name, you could use whoever you could get. Uncle Joe, whatever you can get. And it's hard getting, there's not a lot of testing people out there. And it is expensive, like a $300 pot for a test is expensive, it's a lot. But some people do a sliding scale also, you know. Any questions for me? So if you do come on the waiver and you are 18 or over, as soon as we get you, once you come off the waiting list, because you're gonna sit there for a little bit, and you come off the waiting list, I'm gonna do a referral to ADRS. And in conjunction, we're gonna start working with ADRS to try to line the person up with a job, if that's what they want. Some people may not want a job, but we strongly encourage people to try it and see if you like it. And with the waiver, there's competitive employment, which you would go through ADRS, you would go through this thing called milestones and then get a job. And there's also a thing called small groups, which I call that I feel like that's an internship. So you decide you're ready to work, but you're not ready to work, but you go into a small group. So you're working along with peers and you've got direct support right there with you and you're learning the skills and the tasks. And the plan is not to stay in small groups the rest of your life. Hopefully the plan is to learn those skills and then move on into competitive employment. Does that work for everybody? It doesn't. But we look at each person individually on what that person can do and try. And we try to bring in the supports, because sometimes it's the supports that you need. It's not just the person, but there may be some kind of technology that we can use to help the person meet whatever the need is they need.
But my question is, like you said, rehabilitation service, that's who we're with. And, Abby's new teacher, she know how I am with, the program and everything. And so she was like, wanted me to come to this, so when Abby turned 18 years old, I can get her in the program. So what you're saying is that I can sign her up before she turned 18?
You can sign her up. You can sign her up to go through the eligibility process now. And be at her age of 7, is that what you told me?
She's 12.
12, she would we would probably work the list, hopefully. Just depends on the Medicaid funding and things like that, and if we can get funded, we can hire more support coordinators, and if we can hire more support coordinators, we can take more people off the list faster, and then we can work the list. Our hope is to one day, when you come in to do an intake, and in 2 weeks, when you're determined eligible, you start getting services. You're not sitting there and waiting. That's what we would like to see happen.
So it's best to start now, than wait until
Right.
she's 18 years
It's best to start, if you wait till she's 18, it's gonna be 22 before she gets services.
Okay.
So it's best to start now. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So regarding the waiver, she was wondering, her child has emergency Medicaid, would it still apply? Like, would she still be able to apply for it?
Yes.
Even though it's not normal Medicaid?
She would still be able to apply for it.
Because they thought it was way under.
I don't know whether she turned 18, so, yeah.
That's what a lot of families think.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of old thoughts out there. My child's gonna go through school, they're gonna get through school, they're gonna go to a day program. Well, no longer can you go to a day program on the CWP waiver. Now, on a different waiver you can, but the CWP waiver, we have to get creative They can still go to like the Arc of Tuscaloosa, but it's not called a day program. It might be called personal assistance. It might be called independent living training. There's different wording for it, but it's not you taking them at 9 o'clock and dropping them off at a building at 2 o'clock and picking them back. And I don't know if those are the times, but it's not taking them and dropping them off. It's sort of, you're out in the community, you're inclusion, you're involved, you're doing things, so it's not like I'm just, well, I dropped them off at school for 12 years and now I'm gonna drop them off here for the rest of their life and I'm gonna pick them back up. That's not how it's
So
gonna work.
if you're starting this program, do you need to, like, with her social worker, you know, like, do I need to call like every year or every other year or like every year with the turn, her birthday or?
No, you don't have to call. Once you get on the waiting list, you'll get, annually, you'll get a letter saying that you're still on the waiting
So
list.
that social worker know that we're in the program? or-
That's up to you. It'd be good to let other people know that you're on the program, but, and
Okay,
then a lot of times families will just call, my phone number floats around and people will call, where is my daughter, where's my granddaughter at on the list? And sometimes I'll pull it up and I'll say like, let me count. Or whatever, you know, we're trying to get to you or things
I'm
like
never
that.
hearing it, if I don't hear anything, I start to panic, I'm like, okay, I ain't heard from the social worker in a while, so I will call the social worker.
Yeah, there's a lot of folks out there,
I'm
that-
that
there's, it's one or the other. There's folks that like to call all the time and there's folks that don't call all the time, so.
Okay.
But it's better to call all the time because a lot of times people will get on the waiting list and then you move, you change your phone number, we don't have a contact, you come up on the list and we have no way of trying to get a hold of you. We're on Facebook trying to find you.
Yeah.
We're trying to Google you. We're trying to run your credit report to see if we can find a phone number, but I'm being funny about that. But anyway, but it's better to check in more often and especially update your information, like if you've changed your phone number, you've changed your address, or if something has happened, if your child has passed away or y'all moved to Arizona or something, it's always good to update us so that we can expedite things when it does come up. Cause I can't tell you, a lot of times I will try to call people that's been on the waiting list for 4 or 5 years and I can't find them. And then they just get pushed on to the bottom, and then sometimes they resurface in a year or so, but they're at the bottom.
Well, I always call this 1-800 number.
You won't call the 1-800 after that, you'll have Amanda Grace's phone number after you do an intake, and you'll call her
Okay.
after that.
Okay.
Yeah, she'll give you her number when you come in.
Okay, I did, I'm gonna call her. Okay.
Did y'all have some questions in the back about anything? Yes, ma'am.
On here, looking at, the back page, the eligibility requirements, where it said that it's not the result of, one of them is epilepsy, what if you?
Not the results of just having, sometimes people will have seizures, and because of the seizures, it causes them to regress, and because of the regression, but that's not a developmental disability, that's caused by a medical disability. Or people will have a car accident and have a brain injury or something.
Okay, so if, let's say the epilepsy started when they were a child and you don't really know, like that still would kind of cut them out?
It wouldn't cut them out if they still had a diagnosis. If they still had the diagnosis, that wouldn't cut them out. It would just be, that was the only factor that played into place. You know, we have one person, and they've applied so many times, but he had, you know, until he was 21 or 22, he had, let's say, an IQ of 110, and then he got some kind of disease or something happened, I don't remember exactly what happened, and he regressed, so he's probably like an IQ now of like a 39. But we can't put him on the waiver because prior to 18, before 18, it wasn't diagnosed at that time. So there's all these crack filler situations that are sad, you know, and we try to refer them to ADRS, or we try to refer them to there's other agencies, there's always support. And while you're on the waiting list, we try to find you free supports out there to help you. There's a lot of free things out there, there's a lot of free places to go, you know. There's a lot of agencies that do a lot of things that help folks before you can actually get on your actual, while you're sitting there waiting to get on the waiver, because we know it's a long time before you can get on it.
So when it says developmental disabilities, is that like several calls, like what they mean by developmental disability?
something that affects the brain that causes them to have a lower IQ.
Okay.
You know, you could have cerebral palsy and have a be 199 IQ. It
I'm
just,
just wondering what kind of, like an example, but just to say anything that affects the brain.
it could be, you know, you could be young and you go into stat seizures when you're 6 and you regress, you know, or you have a trauma, things like that.
Okay.
We have to look at each case individually, and there'll be records, we'll get records from the Children's Hospital in Birmingham or here, whatever, I mean, they're looked at it on a case-by-case basis, and it's a group of folks that look at everybody to, determine, it's not just, here's the set you know, you have your set standards, it's sort of like speeding, here's 55, but sometimes when you get stopped, you can talk them out of that ticket because you were, whatever was going on, your sister was dying, and you had to get up and get home or something, you know.
I have a good question. Cause now I'm sitting here reading, I wasn't reading, I'm just asking. But it says last 2 years of IEP. She just graduated from elementary, now she's in middle school, so they moved her IEP and all information to the middle school. So me and her dad felt like she didn't need, you know, a lot of paper. So what if we got rid of the elementary IEP? Cause it says here you need the last 2 years of IEP.
I promise the school's got it somewhere.
Okay,
All of them.
okay,
That's why I was,
okay.
All the paper money, but the majority will follow them.
that's what I was talking about, I just threw everything in a box, that's what I was talking about, I'm a bad parent, cause I just throw everything in a box.
Yeah, that sheds paper, we love to shred paper, so.
But so it's somewhere, I promise, and especially with the electronic age we have now, it's saved
Yeah.
somewhere electronically. It's not like in 1978 when it was all in a box and the rats got into it and ate everything because it had peanut butter on it. It smelled like peanut butter for me eating peanut butter sandwich while I was holding the paper. So I promise you that record's somewhere.
Yes.
So, you were saying mainly the primary diagnosis needs to be intellectual disability, but children with Down syndrome are an exception. So their primary diagnosis can be Down syndrome?
Their diagnosis is still gonna be intellectual disability, but you can, for a bad terminology, you can eyeball that person and tell they've got a disability. You know,
Yeah.
something, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful.
Right.
I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but you know, there's some folks that you can't tell they have a disability until you test them and look at the paperwork. The picture on the outside is different. Like I try to keep my grass cut on the front, but not in the back, so the front of my house looks decent, but don't come to the back. So, I mean, that's a bad analogy also, but.
But
we
this
just-
is just on a piece of paper though, they're not actually, right? Or this is when you're getting your diagnosis?
This is when you're getting your diagnosis, and if the diagnosis would come from somebody with a PhD, or somebody with a license to test, or it would come from a medical doctor. You just couldn't get it from Aunt Susie, they
So
just
that-
thought they were bad.
So it's a, number one, intellectual disability, number two, Down syndrome.
And that's how they'll write it, there's these diagnoses, there's Axis 1, Axis 2, Axis 3, which I know the DMS doesn't use Axis anymore. So, but it's there, and they list it out when you look at a medical report, if you use UMC, or depending on your doctor, they're not gonna list it all out, but they're gonna list the diagnosis out. Any other questions for me? Well, thanks, y'all. Y'all have any questions?
And I know all of this can be very overwhelming, so, if you go home and you have more questions, or if you have questions about anything else disability related, please feel free to reach out. If you go to our website, accessabilio.com, if you grab a flyer or a business card on your way out, it has the QR codes with all of our contact information. But the website has a link to our email, that you can send any question, any information, anything that you need. The flyers also have a feedback form, so if there's any other topics that you wanna know more about, please let us know. We're trying to learn, where the holes are and the gaps that we can fill as far as information goes. We'd also be more than happy to sit down with you and just talk through your specific situation, your child's disability, and kind of what the resources are.
And y'all would have them call the 1-800 number too,
Yeah.
if y'all needed help.
These numbers right here, it's just.
That's just regional numbers, just take a big old pen and mark through them, you don't need that.
Yeah, call the 1-800 number. Yeah, I encourage everyone to call the 1-800 number sooner rather than later, and then they can give you all the specifics about your child's disability, and what they need from you.
Did you say you're gonna try and like pull together the
Yes.
waivers? And are you gonna email it to
Yes, I will.
everybody on the list? Okay, great.
Yep, I will do that.
And can you send that to me too?
Yes. I might be calling you when I look at it.
Figure it out.
But the website does have, it's a resource platform, so it has a lot of the resources already available. I know it has some of the information about CWP, the sale waiver, so a couple of the things that we've talked about. But if there's something that you don't see on the website, please feel free to email, and we can get you that information.
And that's accessibility.com.
Accessibilio, ABILIO.
What was the website again?
Accessibilio, ABILIO.com.
It's on your card.
Not that one, that's fine. Also, upcoming events, Abilio is partnering with Para for Boo in the Park. They've done that event for the last few years, but we're working on making it as accessible as possible. So it'll be October 26th from 1 to 4 at Sokol Park North by the Miracle League Field. First hour will be sensory friendly because they do have their touch a truck, so we will do our best to not have any loud sirens, music, anything like that. And then we will have the sensory activation vehicle there for the entire event. We'll have trunk or treat, so a more accessible, inclusive, friendly trick-or-treating option. Majority of the games will be on pavement, so games, food trucks, touch a truck, trunk or treat, all the good stuff. So we welcome you guys to come to that. And then also Rise Center is having their community connection, and there will be a bunch of different resources and businesses and organizations in the Tuscaloosa area and Birmingham coming out. So they're inviting parents to come and walk around to visit the different tables and learn more about the different resources. There's flyers on the table if you want to grab one on your way out, but that's on October 17th from 1:30 to 3 at Rise. Any other questions? Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for coming out. I'll be around if you have any questions about this, anything else. But yeah, thank you guys for coming.
Thanks for including us.
Yep.